This is your newsroom for today, Wednesday, April 7, 2021. We are broadcasting to you on E1, Scar TV, NTN and Tarsi TV in Bartica. In the headlines, GECOM defends its elections declaration as the Chief Justice is set to rule on APNU AFC's elections petition on April 26.
Our primary case, my lady, as you will see from our written submissions, is that there was no breach.
Surinamese company Assuria General and Life Insurance is constructing its $800 million Guyana headquarters in Georgetown. The Health Minister, Dr. Frank Anthony, says more persons are being hospitalized with a sicker version of the COVID-19 virus. In tonight's features, we tell you about a young man who sold chips to graduate from the University of Guyana, and the Babe Cave is providing a safe space for women who own small businesses. And in sport, the CWI Chief Selector Roger Harper says he's pleased with West Indies' fighting effort against Sri Lanka, and COVID-19 concerns force postponement of big man cricket. With the news, I'm Avinash Ramzan. Thanks for joining us. We started by telling you that almost 8 months after it filed its first elections petition, the APNU AFC coalition will know its fate on April 26, 2021, when the Chief Justice Acting Roxanne George is expected to hand down her ruling. The coalition still hopes that the court will invalidate the elections and set aside the results, but after almost 4 hours of oral submissions on Wednesday, author attorneys believe the petition will fail. Kurt Campbell joins us now.
As oral arguments commenced on Wednesday in relation to the election petition filed by agents of the APNU AFC coalition, the Guyana Elections Commission GECOM stood by its August 2, 2020 declaration emanating from the recount process, which declared that the People's Progressive Party Civic PPPC were the true winners of the March 2, 2020 general and regional elections, and that Dr. Irfan Ali, as leader of the party's list, is the legitimate president. Through its attorney Dominican Senior Counsel Anthony Astafan, GECOM was bold in its rejection of submissions by petitioners Claudette Torn and Heston Boswick that Section 22 of the Election Laws Amendment Act is unconstitutional and that Order Number 60 of 2020 is invalid, null void, and of no effect. With Order Number 60 of 2020 created by virtue of Article 162(1)(b) of the Constitution and Section 22 of the Election Laws Amendment Act to resolve irregularities, discrepancies, and anomalies occurring in the election process and to determine a final credible count, Astafan told the Court of Chief Justice Acting Roxanne George that GECOM was not conceding any breach of the Constitution. He reasoned that the petitioners, who are being represented by a battery of lawyers headed by Trinidadian Senior Counsel John Jeremy, needed to prove total non-compliance with the law. Astafan believes they have not done this in their written or oral submission.
So then, Mr. Astafan, are you saying that there has been a breach, but just it's not substantial? Or
No,
not a total breach?
I am saying to arrive at a breach, you have to establish that the breach was of such an effect as to have an effect on the conduct of the recount. Our primary case, my lady, as you will see from our written submissions, is that there was no breach.
Okay.
Our primary submission is that there's no breach. What I'm merely seeking to do, because that was the part on which we were challenged by the petitioners, was whether there was a sham, a travesty, substantial non-compliance, and so on. We stand by our written submissions, fully and absolutely, that there was no breach, that Section 22 got its constitutional status and genesis and status from Section 162 of the Constitution. Order 60 was entirely consistent with Order 20, with Section 22 and Section 162, and it was the purpose for the Order 60 was transparent. It was enacted in good faith, and it was intended to remove the difficulties that prevented a declaration of final results that for several months.
The petitioners relied on Article 162(1)(b) of the Constitution when they submitted that generally the March 2, 2020 elections were lawfully conducted, but difficulties arose that GECOM was not empowered to resolve. To this end, GECOM's attorney argued that the elections body has the legal authority to act, and in so doing set aside the initial declarations for the 10 districts and conducted a recount of the votes cast to pave the way for a final declaration of the results of the election. In the face of these difficulties, what was GECOM to do? GECOM was obliged to act or else chaos would have enacted, he said. Astafan told the court that the initial declarations were part and parcel of the difficulties GECOM faced. The recount exposed that the declaration in District 4 was reportedly doctored by the returning officer Clement Mingo to hand victory to the APNU-AFC coalition. Oral submissions were put forward by several other attorneys in the case, including Attorney General and Minister of Legal Affairs Anil Nandlal, who represented the state, and Trinidadian Senior Counsel Douglas Mendez, who was representing Bar Jagdeo in his capacity as General Secretary of the People's Progressive Party.
By the time it reached me, Astafan and Mendez and our submissions are similar. So after those two very seasoned campaigner completed their oral presentation, it really had very little for me to say. So I just related to the court the context in which Order 60 must be viewed, the factual context in which it evolved, and against which backdrop it should be interpreted. So I think that this petition is going to fail. The lawyers have not presented any compelling arguments to show why it should succeed. And really, it was without merit from the beginning. It should never have been filed, that's the truth.
At the conclusion of oral submissions on Wednesday, the Chief Justice set April 26, 2021 for a ruling with an indication that should more time be needed, all interested parties would be notified. The APNU-AFC filed its first election petition 8820P on August 31, 2020, officially challenging the outcome of the March 2, 2020 elections and the recount exercise from which the People's Progressive Party emerged victorious. A second petition, 9920P, was filed subsequently on September 15, 2020, also challenging the March 2, 2020 election. This petition has since been dismissed because former President David Granger was not served within the required 5-day timeline, and he has been found to be a necessary party in the proceedings. An appeal is pending. The petitioners want the court to declare that the elections were so badly held that the results from it cannot be deemed to be the will of the people. At the same time, they want the court to have David Granger declared as president under those very elections they claim were conducted against the electoral laws and constitution of the country. The petitioners contend that the Chief Elections Officer was not required to use the data from the National Vote Recount to produce his elections report from which the results were declared.
Meanwhile, the Attorney General and Minister of Legal Affairs Anil Nandlal, during a subsequent interview with the Newsroom on Wednesday, said the timeline with which the elections petition hearings were completed is admirable, particularly in comparison to a petition filed by the PPPC in 2015, which is yet to be heard and determined.
Well, I think that it was concluded with admirable speed, because if you compare it with what transpired in relation to the PPP's petition, which was filed in 2015 and which up to now has not been heard and is still in the court system, then you see how radically different this one was heard and determined. We are now, 4 months from August to December, and then another 4 months into, within 8 months, within a year, the petition is going to be heard and determined long before a year. And I think that is reasonably good speed for a system like ours. Remember, there was another petition too. It's two that they filed, and that one was disposed of already within, I think, 4 or 5 months, I think. And that is at the appellate court, and we have made we have filed certain processes there, and we are awaiting a date for that. But I think that the time frame in which this one was conducted, I think, is remarkable.
Now, 9 years after investing in Guyana, Surinamese company Assuria General and Life Insurance Companies is now expanding its operations here with the construction of its $800 million Guyana headquarters on Church and Carmichael Streets in Georgetown. The Finance Minister, Dr. Ashni Singh, during remarks, called on the insurance sector to do more to educate people about the importance of insurance.
The sod-turning ceremony for the 800 million headquarters for Assuria, Guyana was held on Wednesday. The construction for the 5-story modern building is being executed by Nabi Construction Inc. and is expected to be completed within 14 months. Assuria's managing director Yagindra Arjun, during brief remarks, said the company will continue to deliver exceptional products and services to Guyana. So far, there are 8 Assuria branches countrywide, with a new branch to be opened in Essequibo Region 2, Pomeroon, Suriname soon. The managing director further emphasized that the company is ISO certified and provides international best quality services and products.
This modern building is constructed to highlight that we are here to stay and contribute towards the development of Guyana. We are already providing international best quality service to our clients, so with this building, we can continue to provide that service in a better and more comfortable environment to all stakeholders.
Delivering the feature address at the ceremony was Finance Minister Dr. Ashni Singh, who stated that Assuria's entry into Guyana continues to be viewed as a very positive thing for the insurance sector. He said the construction of its headquarters in Guyana is a significant and tangible investment. Dr. Singh lauded Assuria for expanding its operation at the regional level and urged domestic companies in Guyana to look beyond the local domestic market space.
Once again, by Assuria's decision to construct its own headquarters in Guyana, you are demonstrating, as you did in 2012, you're demonstrating once again your confidence and optimism as it relates to the Guyanese market and the Guyanese economy.
Meanwhile, according to Dr. Singh, insurance is vital to any company and household risk management tool. Dr. Singh urged citizens to think about the risks they face and what insurance services are available to help mitigate those risks. The insurance sector was also encouraged to focus on innovation and introducing new insurance products for businesses and households. Reporting for the newsroom, I am Isanella Patwo.
Health Minister Dr. Frank Anthony says more persons are being hospitalized with a sicker version of the COVID-19 virus, and the government's housing plan is moving apace in Cummings Lodge. This is the newsroom. The government's National Housing Development Plan for 2021 continues to progress, with works already far along for the new Cummings Lodge housing scheme. New areas have been pinpointed for the relocation of squatters who occupied that area. More from Shakima Day.
On Monday, the Housing and Water Ministry issued its final notice to squatters inhabiting portions on plots 1767 and 1768. They have been told to remove their structures immediately, as their illegal structures are slowing down the rate at which the construction is to be done. While a total of 22 structures were discovered, only 11 were occupied, and the notices were issued to those remaining. The ministry said that it is currently earmarking a suitable area within the vicinity for the relocation of those remaining squatters. The deadline is April 10, 2021. According to one woman, Lisa, her family of 8 has been living on the land for close to 2 years, with nowhere else to go. Lisa did not want to appear on camera when she spoke with the newsroom on Wednesday.
This month can make like 2 years, 3 months, and when we get this land here, the community right in here, when keep a meeting that they're sharing out land at the back here. And then the community, the government come and stop us from building, right? And I decide to continue building because I got enough children. I got 8 children, right?
How much you pay for the land here?
We didn't pay for it as yet.
They just said how much?
We just come and build, right? And after we come and build now, right? Like a year and 8 months after, we see this we see these people start coming in and start doing the road and so, right? And then government tell we that we gotta move, and then them call we in to housing, and they decide they're gonna keep we here. And now the call we are back again, and they tell we they're gonna move we from here and put we opposite the station. But them tell we how to put in we or nothing.
Hansel Helligan expressed similar sentiments. He too did not want to appear on camera.
Living here about actually 3 years now. Well, this land was unoccupied for the past how much years? About 25 years or more that I have knowledge of pertaining to, and it's just been abandoned bare bushes, and we just you know, we stranded. We didn't have places to go to live, so we just actually come and we start go down here and, you know, and we start farming. And then we just build a farmhouse and eventually we end up here.
Minister of Housing and Water Colin Crowell, in the company of Chief Executive Officer of the Central Housing and Planning Authority, Sherwin Greaves, and the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry, Mr. Andre Ali, visited the area on Wednesday, along with officials from the Community Development Projects and Enforcement Departments. Minister Crowell stated that the area is earmarked for a new housing project, delivering 190 low-income homes for families, and the illegal activity will severely hamper development. Nevertheless, the minister highlighted government's commitment to providing housing for all Guyanese, as he outlined the ministry's approach. The Housing Ministry, in a subsequent statement, detailed that initial reports noted that 13 contravention notices were served on the occupants of 13 structures observed by the Central Housing and Planning Authority on August 20, 2020. By August 27, 2020, 22 structures were then observed, and a demolition exercise was executed on October 13, 2020, leaving 11 occupied structures. A number of call-in notices were also served, and 6 of the informal settlers has since approached the Central Housing and Planning Authority. Based on interactions with the squatters, the ministry said that 8 have applications within the Central Housing and Planning Authority system, while another 3 are in the process of formally applying to facilitate the relocation process. For the newsroom, I am Shakima Day.
We tell you now that Guyana's COVID-19 death toll reached 250 on Wednesday, with the passing of a 57-year-old woman from Region 4, Demerara, Mahaika. The Ministry of Health reported that the woman died on April 6 while receiving care at a medical facility. 2 others also died on Tuesday, which means that 3 persons died on the same day. This is the 16th death to be recorded for the month thus far. A total of 36 persons died in March, making it one of the deadliest months for COVID-19 here. And more patients are now being hospitalized with a sicker version of COVID-19 in Guyana as cases and deaths spike. The Minister of Health, Dr. Frank Anthony, on Wednesday revealed that many of these patients require ICU and assistance with breathing. According to the minister, about 70 patients are currently being treated in hospitals across the country.
In Guyana, over the last month or so, we've started seeing an uptick of more cases. And well, it's not in every region. We have seen those cases happening more in Region 4, in Region 3, and in Region 7. And out of seeing more cases, we have started seeing more hospitalization. So as of today, we right now have about 70 persons in hospitals. We have 54 at the Ocean View Hospital. We have persons at the Linden Hospital, West Demerara Hospital, and New Amsterdam Hospital. So our regional hospitals, we now have more COVID patients coming into them because they require assistance in breathing. And so we are seeing more cases coming to us. And out of those that have been hospitalized, a percentage of them are much sicker. They will have to get ICU care. So right now at Ocean View, we have about 12 such patients. So we are seeing this, and we want to urge the public to take additional precaution, and that is why the ministry statement went out, because we've been seeing these cases going up, and we are encouraging people to do all the public health measures that we have issued.
Meanwhile, Guyana has strict COVID-19 measures and regulations in place to curb the spread and keep citizens safe. Those measures include a strict curfew. However, some businesses across the country continue to defy the regulations, even though Guyana is experiencing its third, more deadly wave of the virus. But according to the newly elected president of the Georgetown Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Timothy Tucker, vaccinations play a big part in ensuring that businesses survive the pandemic. He spoke with the newsroom's Shakima Day.
All right, then you mentioned COVID, so I just want to move to just your comments on how Guyana's economy has been with the pandemic, how businesses have been coping with it, and along the lines of recovery, what we can do to help move businesses along and help them improve and recover from the pandemic.
mainly the pandemic has hit the business community worldwide. Guyana is no different. It's luckily for oil and gas that we were able to somewhat pull through, still have positive economic growth, because if you take out the oil and gas sector from last year's economy, you will see we were in the negative, probably I think it's negative 7.3 or something around there. So you'd really, the pandemic has really attacked the business. Our hospitality industry, our tourism sector, those are all sectors that generally thrive on people getting in there every day. I would have loved to see some kind of stimulus for both for the hospitality industry and the tourism sector. Going forward, I think that once we have put this pandemic somewhat behind us, and I mean, there's only a few ways you can do that, and one of the major ways is for everybody to get vaccinated. And I think that with what we have now, the amount of vaccinations, that maybe the government should open up vaccinations to all categories of persons, not persons just 40 years and older, but open it up to everybody that wants to be vaccinated. Get them vaccinated. If we get 50% of our population vaccinated, we have a small population. Then it puts Guyana in a better place. We could very well put this pandemic behind us earlier than a lot of other countries. We have porous borders, right? We are a middle income country, so people have to work. Businesses have to open. Businesses, I'm not encouraging it, but I know that there are going to be breaches, right? I would hope that everybody follows the guidelines set out by the Ministry of Health and adhere to them. I believe that, if you're breaking the guidelines and breaking curfew, you must face the consequences.
Which brings me to my next question, because there's been an issue with businesses breaching the guidelines. Persons are not, bars are still opening, persons are not adhering to the COVID guidelines, and then we have the army out to ensure that there is compliance. So your comments?
Here, we have to adhere to the rule of law. The law is there, it's in the it's a gazetted order, and we have to adhere to it. If we don't, then we have to face the consequences. Having said that, right, we're at a place where people's livelihoods are being, it's a long time we're in this mode, and we really, you're seeing people being frustrated now. People are at the point where they don't care. So we have to come up as a country and really figure out how we can gradually reopen and get back to some of that sense of normalcy. But I understand that we look at the new variant, we are in a third wave, so we first have to really take stock. And as I said, vaccinations are key to this. Wear your mask, keep your distance, sanitize, and this is something that we can live through. We don't have to be wild, and we don't have to be reckless, especially when it comes to other people's lives.
The Finance Minister, Dr. Ashley Singh, says the government recognizes that one of the most important things for young people is the availability of jobs, and as a result, the administration will continue to seek opportunities and investments for job creation. Dr. Anthony said investments by the government and the private sector in the coming months will not only create direct jobs, but also indirect employment. Isnella Patwa reports.
Finance Minister Dr. Ashley Singh, at the sidelines of an event on Wednesday, told reporters that there are a number of aspects for job creation by the government. He said as a result of the government's policy for doing business, there are a number of investments in Guyana which will create hundreds of jobs.
Every investor that comes to Guyana, or every domestic investor that invests in a new project, is creating jobs. So every time you hear a new business coming to Guyana in response to the policy environment that we've created, or every time you hear a business expanding in response to the policy environment we've created, that's jobs being created for Guyanese people.
There are a number of construction projects ongoing by the government and the private sector. The government has also deployed fiscal policy instruments with the aim to promote home ownership, and according to Dr. Singh, this will also increase job opportunities in the construction sector.
Then, of course, we're working with multiple other sectors directly to create jobs as well. So, for example, you would have seen that we went out with an expression of interest for hotels. We have several international hotels who have come, who have said they want to construct hotels in Guyana. You have seen His Excellency the President has already done a couple of groundbreaking ceremonies. I think he did one a few months ago. There are at least two or three of these projects that have already turned sod. There are a number of others that will be coming on stream. First of all, the hotels don't build themselves. They need people working on them to build them, and they don't operate themselves. Once a hotel is constructed, you're going to have literally dozens of people working in those hotels from every level.
With a number of hotels being constructed and others earmarked for construction this year, hundreds of jobs will also be generated. Meanwhile, Dr. Singh also revealed that the government is working with business process outsourcing BPOs and call centers to create additional jobs. Reporting for the newsroom, I am Isanella Pato.
When the newsroom returns, we tell you about a young man who sold chips to graduate from the University of Guyana, and the Babe Cave is providing a safe space for women who own small businesses. This is the newsroom. The International Monetary Fund, that's the IMF, has revised Guyana's projected economic growth for 2021 to 16.4%, a jump from the 8.1% growth it previously projected. This comes as no surprise to Guyana's Finance Minister, Dr. Ashley Singh, who on the sidelines of an event on Wednesday stated that it highlights a clear renewed optimism in the local economy.
We are, of course, not in the least bit surprised at the upward revision in the growth forecast for Guyana. As you know, 2020 was a very challenging year for our country for a variety of reasons. Reasons associated with the elections, reasons associated with COVID-19, and so on. And so the last time the IMF would have done their forecasts on the Guyanese economy, which I think would have been around September, October 2020, there would have been a lot of uncertainty and perhaps less clarity on where the country was going and what the prospects and opportunities for the country would be. Since then, of course, things have been clarified. We've had a government assume office in August 2020. We have had two budgets now, the emergency budget for 2020 and, of course, the 2021 budget, which have now outlined the new government's economic and fiscal plans. Those, of course, help to resolve any policy uncertainties that might have existed. The two budgets have sent a very clear signal of where our government is taking economic policy and what our intentions are with respect to economic policy. And with the benefit of all of the clarity of the signal that we would have sent, I'm not surprised at the upward revision of the growth outlook by the IMF. What that reflects, of course, is the remarkable optimism that has now returned to the Guyanese economy.
30-year-old Nicholas Chesney recently graduated from the University of Guyana, but his achievement did not come without struggle. His is a story of sheer determination. When the expenses of attending university began to add up, he had to find a way out, and so he took up selling chips. Here's his story.
My name is Nicholas Ariston Chesney, 30 years old, and I recently graduated from the University of Guyana with a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering. I did the calculations, right? He was giving me a percentage, but it wasn't enough for the amount of work that I was putting in. So I told him it can be better if I sell chips by myself, right? I'm not sure if he was upset or not. I think he was cool with the idea. So I eventually took it over from him and started selling chips. That's how it started, and it's a good thing it started like that because I didn't have to prepare it. I just had to buy it from the supplier. So it was easy for me. So that's how it started basically. At times, I didn't have any money for transportation, especially. In the first year, it was rough. I used to take the bus. I took a taxi one time. I started riding my bicycle. But a day I got punctured on the bicycle and I had to walk home from UG to Monrepo. And I was like, nah, I gotta find another way to reach the UG. Eventually I went on, I got a motorcycle, and then I realized transportation wasn't the only thing I needed. I needed money to print assignments, I needed money for miscellaneous fee, right? My father was paying the tuition, and I still needed some money to, move around, buy food, With my course, you can't really work, it's a full-time program, right? I know a couple of people who still work, but I couldn't work, I couldn't make it because I had to study hard. I had a weak background in maths, so I had to put in the work. I couldn't go and work anywhere, so I had to find a way of making money in UG. So I look at the chips and I say, well, this is the right thing to do, because in technology, we don't have a lot of food places there. I created a chip group after the business, kicked off, and I was giving out free chips to anybody who could come up with a good slogan, a catchy slogan. And one of my friends, his name is O'Neill Leach, he came up with that slogan. He said, a chip a day will raise your GPA, and he won some amount of chip. I can't remember if I gave him extra or less, but he collected a good set of chips for that slogan. I realized that I was shy to sell the chip because that's not the cool thing to do, right? And then I realized some people didn't have money to buy the chip, and that was sad for me, because here I was feeling bad for selling chip, and there were people who couldn't buy the chip, even though it was $120. So I was like, I gotta do this, and I would encourage people to put pride aside, right? Pride cannot feed you, right? Pride can't provide what you need. You gotta put that aside, and you gotta be a real Guyanese, a hustler. I would tell them, don't give up at all, because a lot of people are depending on you. A lot of people are looking up to you. They don't tell you until you finish. A lot of people told me they were looking up to me. If they had told me that before, I would have, put in more work, but you found out at the end of the thing. But a lot of people are looking up to you. Your parents, your family is depending on you. Also, my method is to get as far away from poverty as possible. So education is something that will take you far away from poverty. So don't give up. It's basically you running away from poverty. And I ask myself ever so often, how far did I manage to get away from poverty after all these years, right? And after all these things that I did, and I'm not that far away actually.
Owned by Amber Lowe, the Babe Cave, which is located at 129A Duncan Street, Campbellville, Georgetown, has given space to women in small business ventures a chance to meet the needs of the Guyanese public. Lowe recently spoke with Newsroom's Akeem Green and gave some insights into her passion for creating the establishment.
Hi there, my name is Amber Lowe and welcome to the Babe Cave. We are located at 129A Duncan Street. So, the Babe Cave was actually founded by Naked Closet. This is an online fashion marketplace, and as a woman in business, there were a lot of different struggles, especially in a small business, and I thought, well, if I am going through this, then there must be so many other women who were facing the same challenges. And so that's how the idea of the Babe Cave was created. So right now we are a collaborative space for women in business. We're actually the first collaborative space for women in business in Guyana, and we offer many different packages tailored to suit all female-led small businesses. So the great thing about it is that most of our businesses are, usually on social media, Instagram, and people walk in for one thing and end up finding almost everything you need. So you can find wines, outfits, you can find makeup, and everything that you need. So I think that it's a one-stop shop, and it's also supporting small female-led businesses. So people have been really great. The response has been amazing. We've been really lucky on that front. The entire thing about the Babe Cave is collaboration and creation. So right now we host over 30 small businesses. Some of them are a little similar, but there's no competition. So it is really just more than owning your business or starting up something. It really is working together and building each other as women, especially in Guyana, where, you know, it's still very male dominated. Let's be real, we're facing challenges, and we're trying to change a narrative for women in business. Right now, all I will say is find your circle, find a tribe, find a group of like-minded women or people, whatever your interests are. And having a great support system is one of the most important things you will do or you can do for yourself, whether it's in business, in school, whatever it is. Having a support system and people who think along the same lines and people who really are there for you is very important. So I think the biggest thing short term is to find a community of people who are willing to build you and who are willing to be there and stand with you through the hard times.
When the newsroom returns, the financial, weather and bridge reports along with sports. Welcome back to Newsroom. Now for a look at what's happening in sport. We're starting off with some cricket news. A pleasing effort. That's how Cricket West Indies lead selector Roger Harper described West Indies' display in the recently concluded home series against Sri Lanka in Antigua. In the first international series in the Caribbean since the pandemic, the regional side emerged the better team in the all-format series. In the limited overs segment of the series, West Indies won the three-match T20s 2-1 and made a clean sweep of the three one-day internationals that followed. The two test matches were both drawn, the first test series in nearly 6 years to end in a 0-0 draw. Roger Harper, the Cricket West Indies chief selector, reflecting on the series on Mason and Guest radio show in Barbados on Tuesday night, was high in praise of the regional cricketers.
I think, Andrew, overall, I think, yes, it was a very pleasing effort. I think all round. You asked about the test series, but I'll say all round because we had a home series where we played T20s, ODIs and Test cricket, and to come away with a series victory in the T20s, a complete 3-0 victory in the ODIs, and then as much as we would have liked to have won those two Test matches or at least won the series, to come away with 2 draws, I think is a positive for us. So I think we had a very good home series. And it's a performance that we can continue to build on.
While Harper stated there were no disappointments, there are certainly areas the test and limited overs sides can improve on. Zoning in on the test series in particular, Harper believes West Indies may have missed an opportunity to notch a win in the opening game.
Well, I think we really lost an opportunity there in the first innings of the first test. Having dismissed Sri Lanka for a relatively low score, we really needed to build a big lead and apply the pressure to the Sri Lankans, but instead we got a lead of a little over 100, I think it was. And then we found ourselves, the pitch got very flat, and we found ourselves batting to save the game rather than really applying pressure to the Sri Lankans. So I thought really we lost an opportunity there by not being able to build a big first innings lead in that first test match, having bowled them out when the pitch had a little bit of moisture in it early on in that first innings. And, we bowled and managed to use that to our advantage, but we didn't bat and take advantage of it. So I think we let that opportunity slip away.
Despite not getting the win, Harper reasoned that West Indies batting out the final day to earn a draw was something significant as he lauded the fighting spirit of the test side. In the first test, Sri Lanka were dismissed for 169, to which West Indies responded with 271. Sri Lanka then piled up a total of 476, leaving West Indies a target of 375. West Indies then batted out to safety at 236 for 4. In the second test, West Indies made 354 and then dismissed Sri Lanka for 258. The Caribbean side then declared a 280 for 4, leaving the tourists with a target of 377. They safely negotiated the final day to end on 193 for 2 to secure a draw. West Indies came into the series on the back of a historic 2-0 Test series win against Bangladesh, beating the Asian side at home. While off-spinner Sulen Narine is still sorting out his action, which has hampered his return to international cricket, batsman Chris Gayle and fast bowler Fidel Edwards are still very much part of West Indies' limited overs setup. That's the word from Cricket West Indies Chief Selector Roger Harper. Speaking on Mason and Guest radio show in Barbados on Tuesday night, Harper was questioned on the status of the trio going forward.
Sulen Narine had indicated to us that he was not yet ready for the international scene. He was still in the process of fine-tuning his bowling action. You know, he had some issues with that. He's in the process of fine-tuning that. So he was not ready for the international scene. So when he makes himself available for and thinks that he's ready for international cricket, we will then have to make a determination at that point. Fidel Edwards and Chris Gayle. I think as far as Chris Gayle is concerned, you know, we had a number of players who had been given an opportunity. I think they were unable to cement their place in the team. And Chris Gayle had performed very well in some leagues, high-profile leagues around the world, and to have a look at him on the international scene as well. Regarding Fidel Edwards, now you remember O'Shane Thomas had been the sort of impact bowler, the sort of 90-mile-per-hour plus bowler that we had in the squad, who had done very well in Sri Lanka. But he has not been at his best, and you know, we needed someone who will have the same sort of impact and effect as O'Shane. That's what we were looking for, and Fidel was the only one who's been around playing T20 cricket for in the region and bowling at that pace. So that's the reason we went for Fidel, because Fidel might be, you know, getting on in age, but he's still very fit and bowling pretty sharp.
Still in cricket, the Big Man Cricket Tournament has been postponed until further notice as the organizers are concerned about the rising number of COVID-19 cases and deaths in Guyana. In a statement on Wednesday, the organizers said they will assess the situation before deciding on a resumption date. The Big Man Cricket Committee said a conscious decision was made to postpone the Banks Beer Maximum Vodka-sponsored T25 tournament until further notice, given the recent spike in COVID-19 cases and deaths. In a press statement, the committee expressed its concern about the health situation and called on Guyanese to exercise caution. They said, and I quote, "BMC would like to urge all Guyanese to adhere strictly to the published protocols of the National COVID-19 Task Force and the Ministry of Health. Further, we urge persons to secure their vaccinations at the earliest opportunity. This combination will surely assist us all to eliminate this deadly virus in the quickest possible time." End quote. Guyana's COVID-19 death toll reached 250 on Wednesday, with the passing of a 57-year-old woman from Region 4, Demerara, Mahaica. There are currently over 10,600 cases. The Big Man Cricket Committee added that given the current unpredictable weather, the committee will continue to assess this situation in tandem and announce the restart of this competition at the earliest opportunity. At the end of the last round of play, Jai Hind Jaguars lead the points table. With 4 wins from 4 games, Dale lead with 139 points, followed by West Bank Warriors on 91. They are followed by Essequibo Eagles on 78, GT Royal Rangers on 69, West Ham Vipers on 54, Timothy Motorcycle Masters on 35, Legends on 27, and Real Warriors on 17. This tournament is used as the yardstick to select a Guyana team to compete at a regional tournament which will be held in October and is expected to feature Trinidad and Tobago, Barbados, Jamaica, the Leeward Islands, the Windward Islands, along with teams from Canada and the Americas. Thereafter, players will be selected to a West Indies over 50 squad to participate at the over 50 World Cup in South Africa in 2022. We tell you now that the Guyana Amateur Powerlifting Federation will host its Novices and Juniors National Championship and Qualifiers on Sunday, April 25, 2021. It will mark the Federation's first tournament since the pandemic struck in March 2020. Akeem Green reports.
Powerlifting started and ended at Novices in 2020 due to the COVID-19 pandemic and will make a restart at Novices amidst the pandemic later this month. Public Relations Officer of the Federation, Renata White, explained to Newsroom Sport on Wednesday they are unsure of the number of persons who will compete at this event, given a long layoff from the gyms and training. Gyms were only allowed to reopen at 50% capacity in October last.
I'm not exactly sure at this moment how many athletes we'll have for the competition, but if I have to estimate, I would say about 25. The reason that I'm saying 25 is because we have novices, juniors, and qualifiers. I've given a small number because I would actually expect more, but that's a small number for all three of those because we're not exactly sure how many persons would be training consistently in order to compete. And there's only, we've only given them 2 weeks and change in order to prepare for the competition. Basically because we just got approval from the task force. So, not sure about novices and juniors, but for qualifiers, quite a number of persons have put forward their interest in order to make the national team for later this year if we are able to leave the country for international competition.
That overseas competition is the Pan American Regional Powerlifting Championships from the 17th to the 21st of August in Orlando, Florida. With regards to the event later this month, White, who herself is an athlete, said it's too early to tell what might be the level of competition due to the long layoff. She further indicated, from a federation perspective, they want to fully adhere to all the guidelines so they can continue to proceed with future competitions.
Since it's our first competition since the entire pandemic, we really are trying to adhere to the guidelines given by the task force. Only, so we don't have spectators at the event. We'll do live streaming. We always do, but people, I think more persons will be more interested in using that because they cannot be there to view the competition physically. So there's that. And of course, all COVID guidelines will be in place. So we really are just trying to put our best foot forward in order to ensure that the task force sees that we've done well in order to host competitions for the rest of the year, and also to ensure that the judges, athletes, sponsors, everybody remains safe, so they would feel encouraged to come back and compete and participate for the rest of the competition.
The weigh-in is from 6 hours to 7 hours 30, and the competition begins at 8 hours. The location for the event will be announced at a later date. The registration form and monies can be submitted to committee member Martin Webster, or payment can be made to the Federation's Republic Bank account. After depositing the money into the account, competitors are asked to send images of both the registration form and the deposit slip. For the newsroom, Akim Green.
Football news now. PSG and Chelsea emerged with victories as quarter-final action in the Champions League continued on Wednesday. PSG managed a 3-2 win over Bayern Munich, and Chelsea secured a 2-0 success over Porto FC. A double from Kylian Mbappe proved the difference for PSG as he scored the opening goal and the decider after the two sides were locked 2-2. Chelsea got their goals from Mason Mount and Ben Chilwell. On Tuesday, Real Madrid defeated Liverpool and Manchester City edged Dortmund. And finally in sport, another century from Fakhar Zaman helped Pakistan to a series-clinching 28-run defeat of South Africa in the third one-day international. Fakhar, who made 193 in a losing effort in the second ODI, made 101 from 104 balls, with captain Babar Azam adding 94 from 82. Hassan Ali's 32 not out of just 11 balls lifted the tourists to 320 for 7. South Africa were rarely in the chase in Centurion, and they were bowled out in the final over for 292, losing the series 2-1. The home side were without Quinton de Kock, David Miller, Enrique Nortje, Lungi Ngidi and Kagiso Rabada, who had all travelled to the Indian Premier League, while Rassi van der Dussen was ruled out with a quadriceps injury. Their chase was hit by left-arm spinner Mohamed Nawaz, who took 3 wickets to see the Proteas slip from 127 for 2 to 140 for 5. And with that, we've come to the end of the news for this evening. Of course, you can find updates on these and other stories on our website, Newsroom.gy, our Facebook page and Instagram. On behalf of the entire news team, my name is Avinash Ramzan. Thanks for watching. Be safe. See you next time.